Do you give up too easily? In Luke 18, there's a parable of a persistent widow who continues to relentlessly go to the unjust judge. Perhaps her husband had been killed. If an unjust judge is willing to finally listen, how much more is God willing to bring justice when we come to him day and night? There's then a parable about a religious leader who thanks God he is not like any of these sinners. And he does this publicly, whereas privately a tax collector comes before God and says, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Only the one willing to humble himself, the tax collector, was made right with God that day. There's then a story of a wealthy man who comes to Jesus and he gives up too easily. He thinks he's lived out all the commandments, but he's actually has wealth as his God. And the disciples say, well, who can be saved if the wealthy can't be saved? And Jesus says, what might seem impossible in the world is possible with God. He then says that there is a blessing for those willing to give up everything to follow him. He then predicts his coming death and resurrection, and the disciples don't fully understand. And then there's a blind man who also persists. He calls out for Jesus, and people try to hush him. But eventually Jesus comes to him and says, what do you want me to do for you? And he says, I want to see. And Jesus heals him. In what do you need to persist? For what or for whom do you need a miracle?